what's up?
Woo!
Welcome to the Exit Only Theater podcast. Today we are...
That is a great
I was so
start.
excited. I swallowed everything. That's what she said.
Sorry, bug over there.
Alright, but welcome to the Exit Only Theater podcast. Today, I am sitting next to two awesome people.
Ooh, how kind of you.
Yeah, both of them are named Adrian. No, no, I'm just kidding. I'm sitting next to...
JP Leigh?
Next to...
Jonathan Fisher.
Awesome.
He's doing like a megaphone. It sounds like he's across the room.
What's up? Alright, but today we are reviewing two movies.
Yeah, we are.
We saw two awesome movies and we want to give them their formal review.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start with The Martian and then later we're going to Sicario. Alright, but we're going to kick off with The Martian.
A little bit of a lighter
And I'm
tone.
talking in like radio voice.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing right
Enter
now.
to win! Good job!
We run this risk when we let you start things off.
I had water! I have to pee.
Sounds like you got a...
It's like perfect transition.
Oh, yeah! The more you know. Alright, so we're going to get started off. We're going to be talking about The Martian. We just saw it. It's a big hit movie from over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give you our thoughts whether it was worth the money that people were spending for it. So, I'm going to go around starting with JP Leigh. What did you think of The Martian?
I really enjoyed it.
Ah.
I thought it was much funnier than I was expecting it to be. Which, and I tell people that, they're like, really? It's funny? It's set in space. I was like, yeah, I know, but like, just the way that Matt Damon handles the situation is really good.
Space movies aren't funny.
There's a good quote from Grantland's Alex Papademos that I thought was perfectly explained what I thought about the movie.
About the Papademos.
Quote, moving on. Quote, at times, The Martian feels like Ridley Scott's apology to anyone still annoyed by the degree to which Prometheus hinged on ostensibly brilliant scientists making fatally dumbass choices. So this movie is sort of the antithesis to that, in that it was Matt Damon solving mundane problems on this alien planet. So that's how I felt that this movie was just like, it could have been such a like serious tone and like dark, and the themes that Ridley Scott could choose to take could have been in like a completely different direction. But I thought it was fun. So
nice.
My transition I was talking about was water on Mars.
Oh no, we totally got it.
I don't think you did.
Oh, I totally did.
Anyhow, I didn't think The Martian was
Welcome to Earth.
spectacular.
Friend. You don't think it was spectacular?
I liked it. Great piece of cinema.
Yes.
Great acting by everyone across the board.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't standout. It kept my attention, but it didn't keep me like on the edge of my seat, as they say. Because
why?
Like, it's not like a Gravity where you're like, oh my god, is Sandra Bullock gonna have her head like blown off in space? You basically know he's at least gonna get like to the spaceship, back to the spaceship.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the whole movie is about him like being rescued.
it's true. Roger Ebert's website had a review about it saying essentially the same thing. Like, you know, if you cast such an A-list cast, everyone's gonna have a role. Matt Damon's not gonna die on Mars. Like, spoiler alert. Like, you don't put Jessica Chastain in a movie for 10 minutes. Like, obviously the things that were headed that way were obviously like they were obvious.
Yeah.
And the things that we hated about Interstellar, like, Interstellar still had a couple surprise moments, like Ben Affleck.
Matt
Damon.
I did not see that part.
We'll get there. That's actually our next topic. I'm gonna just
What did you think?
what did I think about it? I agree with Jonathan. I thought I was really fun. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think like I'm surprised that people love it as much as they do. I'm not gonna lie, it really surprised me. I'm glad sci-fi films. This is science fiction. Mm-hmm. But I'm surprised people warmed up to it so much. It makes me happy because it's like, yay, people like these movies. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, you really like this one, huh?
But
fuck you guys.
Why would that be your opinion though? Like, why are you like, oh, you liked this one? Darn it!
Because quick aside, the reason why is its Rotten score was so high. I'm actually proud of like the Rotten reviewers because for a movie like this, I feel like they would go home, sleep on it, and be like, rotten. Instead, it was a good piece of cinema. They gave it a fresh score, which I appreciate. Mm-hmm. It just, like Adrian said, most people would maybe say it's rotten because it didn't have like that lasting value.
Yeah.
I just feel like to judge people for liking it.
I'm not judging people.
For you to be like, well, really? But I don't agree with that.
I'm just saying, what surprises me is how much people liked it. Not so much that they liked it, but I'm just like, oh, you guys really like this one that much. That's great. I'm just surprised because it's kind of like the Jurassic World of the Oscar season. It's just like, it's like, wait a second, that was the one? Yeah. I'm like, interesting. That's very interesting to me.
Fair enough. I feel like you're hating on him a little bit, but I like that you toned it down.
I don't like people. Screw them. Innocent, guilty till proven innocent. But I'm glad you're on the right track with what you were talking about with Interstellar. I wanted to ask you guys, and I'm going to start with you, because you brought it up. Was this the movie we all thought it would be, aka Interstellar 2?
No, not at all.
Okay, why?
I need to rewatch Interstellar because I kind of blocked that movie out of my mind.
No, you don't.
Interstellar was way too confusing and way too, like, I love confusing movies, and I love trying to figure them out, but it just, like, was confusing to a point of, like, it's a fault.
It was confusing for the sake of being complicated.
Yeah, and I didn't really like it. I thought that, like, Matthew McConaughey and everyone was just trying way too hard.
Yeah.
And this was the perfect, everyone knew their role, even Danny Glover.
Donald Glover. Does it every time.
I do it every
Get
time.
too old for this shit.
Now he does it on purpose, just to mess with us.
Like, he was great. He was the most enthusiastic, like, character out of the whole thing.
He was
He
most
almost
over-the-top
overacted.
Yeah.
That's
but
how.
it worked, though.
That's how, like, deadpan most of the performances were to me.
But they had to be.
They had to be.
But I don't know. It definitely wasn't Interstellar 2.
No.
I always joke to people. I kept telling everyone it was a prequel to Interstellar just to get a rise out of everyone. Yeah. And sometimes I wouldn't tell them that it wasn't. Yeah. So like, really? I'm like, yeah. And I just walk away. And then like they'd probably come back and be like, that wasn't that movie at all. Yeah. Like, yeah. Well, Jessica Chastain and Matt Damon were in it, so it wasn't really wrong. Whoa. But I definitely theme-wise was completely different, and I liked it for that reason. Because I, as a kid, wanted to be an astronaut until I realized I didn't like close spaces or heights. So I realized at a very young age also that I didn't want to be an astronaut. But I think these movies take such dark tones and can be so dangerous that I just had a really good time enjoying Matt Damon's like personality in space. Like, he never let the environment get to him, which some people didn't like. Some people were like, he's by himself for essentially, 2 years? Like, that could get to someone. I'm like, yeah, but he's with us. Like, he's recording all these, GoPro footage videos that are essentially going to no one.
Yeah.
But we are playing the role of his friend in the movie, which brings you into it and kind of, I don't know, it takes you in a little bit better. Some people didn't like that side of it, but I liked it.
Sorry, I can't even remember. Did he have a wife or kids back home? No.
They never really addressed it. And when
which I'm thinking he didn't, because he would have talked about it.
Right, which I also like that. Like, they didn't really give him a lot of backstory. They were just like, he's a botanist, so clearly he's gonna figure this stuff out.
He's an androgynous botanist.
I like what JP Lee was going at, is that it was a dreary movie set with a positive tone, which is very refreshing, because we live in a day and age now that everything gets dark nighted, where it's just like, you say Superman? No, he's sad now. Deal with it.
So monochromatic.
No. So this one was kind of refreshing, where it's like, look, I'm alone in space. I might die, but I'm gonna try my best to make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah. It was very 1950s ish kind of like upbeat. Let's try to make this work. Let's see what we can do with the tools we have.
Absolutely.
Personally, I was still pissed that Matt Damon fucked over the reconnaissance in Interstellar. Like, how dare you?
Still holding it against him. Fair enough.
But this version of Damon, like, if he would have been in Interstellar, not only would he have gotten off the planet, he would have wifed up with future past Chastain.
Yeah.
He would have phoned E.T. home, and he would have rescued the alien crew from the prequels. Or like,
all with a smile on his face.
It's just like, I got you guys. I'm gonna science the shit out of you guys.
That's it's such a good line.
It was so good. But
baking potatoes for everyone.
Oh yeah, of course.
Hey, I've been in the past. I've been broke, and I've eaten potatoes every day. When you run out of ketchup, you are pissed.
You do use.
You get pissed. I'm like, good God, dude. But no, it was a very enjoyable film. It didn't end up being Interstellar 2.
Nope.
I'm glad it ended up being its own thing.
Absolutely.
My next question that I posed to you guys, because Ridley Scott directed it, and it was like, maybe he's back, maybe he's not. I wanted to ask you guys, if Ridley Scott didn't direct this movie, who could you see? Do you think they would do just as good of a job? And if you think someone else could have done better, who would it be?
Personally, I'm going to choose not to pick someone else, because I think Ridley Scott has been able to balance like big budget sci-fi thriller with some other pieces of cinema in his career, like Thelma and Louise, and films that are inherently maybe not funny, but they rely on a side of humor, a Shakespearean comedy-esque side to it. So I feel like I genuinely don't think anyone else could pull it off as well as him. Maybe Zemeckis, but I feel like Zemeckis would even take it too much in the sentimental side of things. Yeah. In the same way I think Spielberg would do it. Yeah. So I think the balance of like, you never really lose sight of the danger, but you're never pushed to that limit. Yeah, it's something that he pulls off really well, and I like Ridley Scott's version of it. I wouldn't want to see anyone else's version.
Like you said, like I think how many people liked it. I think it was a people's movie. Yeah, I think he didn't have a crazy style. So yes, I think somebody else could have directed it. Like I don't think there was any like crazy like
yes and no
Ridley Scott stuff to it.
There's an attention to detail in this movie that works. Like the fact that like it's like a love letter to NASA in a way. Yeah. And that works as a backdrop to this movie, and I don't know if other directors would have taken that much care to
Except
doing
at the same
that.
time, it's a love letter to NASA, but the whole time the internal offices are saying like, "Oh, we don't want this to be released to the public, and we don't want this."
Well, right, but that's an internal struggle that happens in any major organization,
yeah.
so it's realistic in that sense.
That's
but
what
at
I
the
like
same
about
time, they didn't like Jeff Daniels may have had like issues with it, but at the end of the day, he may have been strong armed, but he didn't like, become a really bad guy and be like, no, we can't do this.
I feel like Jeff Daniels like mailed this one in. I didn't think it was that great.
He wasn't. Yeah, it was
His
like
character
they
didn't
didn't have really much. It's like just be the boss.
Yeah,
be the boss. And, going on what you guys said, and you nailed it right where I was probably going to it. I'm like, it felt very for how optimistic it was and how human like hardish it was.
Yeah,
it was very Spielbergian, but really made it his own. The reason I wanted to pose the question was because I wanted to see him like, because Ridley Scott has gotten so much flack recently, then this movie came out and everyone was like, oh, he's back. And we'll talk more about that later, but it was just like, I'm curious, I'm like, was it because the movie or the script was that good, or was it because he made it that much better?
I just think it's in his wheelhouse, and I think he let himself just do what he wanted to do instead of letting the themes overtake stuff. So.
Okay. That's a good point.
Alright, now, personally, I wanted to raise this next question because when I watched Matt Damon, I was just like, oh man, that was really fun.
This is where I disagree.
Could anybody else have played his character? Because he was awesome. He really was. But when I watched it, the entire time I thought, I'm like, man, he's pulling off Paul Rudd really, really good. Holy crap. Believe me, I knocked it out of the park, but when I hear the dialogue, I'm listening to Paul Rudd. I'm like,
what does that even mean?
It's just like
the quips, the
humor, the him being kind of just like always positive, but like even in a negative situation.
But he pulled it off perfectly. Like I didn't think Paul Rudd at all.
Personally, I did because it was
yeah. I mean, I could see him delivering the lines, but I didn't think of Paul Rudd while he was saying.
I didn't a single time in the movie. I don't agree that Paul Rudd could have done as good a job.
No,
because what works in this movie is that you have to believe him as a botanist scientist first, and then the humor comes in after. Yeah. Paul Rudd, you'd be waiting for the lines, and the whole time thinking, "There's no way this man could turn shit into potatoes." Like it's the balancing act that someone as serious and as good an actor as Matt Damon can pull off.
Okay.
I don't know. Not that Paul Rudd's not a good actor, but he hasn't taken risks in
it would have been distracting if it was
like
him.
You weren't even excited for Ant-Man, and he played like a
he played a burglar. He played Paul Rudd.
I'm not saying that he was like perfectly classed in that one either. But like I'm just saying, like when I heard him, like that reminds me a lot of Paul Rudd.
Yeah, Paul Rudd plays Paul Rudd in every movie he's in. That's what takes me away from it. I don't think he could pull off space botanist, and that's what you have to do first. And then the humor.
I think Matt Damon played the role perfectly, and I don't think he'll get nominated for it. But I also don't think another person could have maybe played that role.
No, I think he did perfectly. Maybe Joel Edgerton, I would like to see him do something sort of humorous. Yeah. But that's almost like they look similar. Maybe that's just me making that jump. But I disagree that Paul Rudd could have done this as well as he did.
Me too.
Okay.
I could see him delivering the lines as well. Yeah. But the film that ended up becoming
maybe if it was a cartoon, like Paul Rudd.
Yeah, what this film ended up becoming, I don't think Paul Rudd could have done it as well.
Alrighty.
Especially those serious moments in the beginning and the end of him on Mars.
True.
I don't think Paul Rudd could have done either of those scenes.
Paul Rudd even shed a tear. I don't even know.
I don't know. Unless he's laughing so hard he's crying.
Not
I have no
since
idea.
Clueless.
Right, exactly.
No, alright. So I thought this was a fun question to ask because since it deals with resourceful scientists set out in space, it reminded a lot of people of Sandra Bullock's performance in Gravity, who also found a way to survive in crazy circumstances. So my question I pose to you guys, which is very fun, who would you pick to be the more resourceful scientist? Matt Damon in Here, or Sandra Bullock in From Gravity?
Well, I think it's a loaded question because Matt Damon in this one basically halfway through the movie had an entire team of NASA behind him to help him figure out the problem.
True.
He's really just a botanist at heart.
But Sandra Bullock had George Clooney. And it was a rhetorical...
Like in her mind?
That's the thing. That's why I do Matt Damon, because she had this stupid rhetorical device of George Clooney, like, coming in to give her a pep talk.
Yeah.
That is my least favorite scene in that movie.
But she also had her child, like, in the back of her mind the whole time.
Right, that was a veiled attempt at depth of her character. That movie to me has no story.
Hater.
That movie has no story.
Hater.
That movie's a roller...
Hater.
Say something constructive, or don't say anything at all.
Tools.
Haterade. No, but I think that movie is very simple in its plot, so it needed little sprinkled in things like what you're talking about. Yeah. I genuinely think someone who survives, 3 hours of rotating space debris versus 2 years on Mars, I give it to Matt Damon.
Completely uncontrolled environment though she's in. She's
So is
flying around.
So is his. He had a station to start with, but shit hit the fan.
I'm picking beautiful Sandra Bullock to sit next to me in
Fine,
space.
I'm picking resourceful Matt Damon.
Let's just say, like, he had, I don't know, just for the sake of playing devil's advocate, he had food, she did not. She could have chilled, maybe calmed down, like, okay, I got this sandwich here. Let me take a bite, maybe I'll be okay.
Well, theoretically she did, it's just the debris hit the space station.
This is true. But I agree with you that it took, for Sandra Bullock, it took a George Clooney vision quest to kind of come to
It just
degrees.
didn't, it took me out of it.
It was just, you know, but Damon, the second he, like, crap hit the fan, he was ready to bake potatoes. So I'm like, you know what? I think Damon by far was the most resourceful scientist of the two.
You saw more examples. Like
definitely.
You see her surviving scenarios, but it's a lot of floating around and hoping she grabs door handles.
Yes.
Where he's like thinking things out and just progressively going through.
I kind of got annoyed by Bullock by always being like,
I mean, I would be too. I'd be screaming the entire time, wasting all my oxygen.
In space, though.
What?
No one can hear you scream.
Except myself in my spacesuit.
Speaking of that, no one can hear you scream in space.
Ooh,
alien transition.
Cherry
Yay.
brain.
Alright, so now, I think we're unanimous that Ridley Scott did a great job in this film. Alright? No. Well, he did a good job.
Yeah.
He did a good job. Now, are you ready to proclaim that he is back as being one of the great directors? And does this movie, based on what he did with this movie, with The Martian, are you more excited now for Alien Paradise Lost? Because that's the next movie that will be coming out from him.
I say maybe.
Maybe he's back? Okay.
Maybe he's back.
Riding the fence.
Because this is the sequel to Prometheus, right?
You are the fence.
This is Prometheus, right?
It's not the prequel to Prometheus. It's the sequel to Prometheus.
Yeah.
Sequel to the prequel.
I love Prometheus. I love the special effects. I feel like his special effects in The Martian were not that well done, and there weren't that many of them.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that scares me. The flying, like, space scenes where they're, like, flying around that, like, space station, I thought they were terrible.
Understood. I'm going to interject, though, because I think it's a different team of people.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So. Like, that's why I said Prometheus was really great, and that style was great.
But I think that will carry out to the next
exactly.
one. Yeah, for sure. I think I'm encouraged by... No, but then I read the articles about him talking about Prometheus, and he's just thematically all over the place, so I don't know.
Just like Prometheus.
Great. So I'm a little worried just in general about that movie, but this makes me feel more comfortable about once he's in the director's chair, what he's going to be doing. Yeah. I'm just afraid he's going to do the whole too many cooks in the kitchen in the writing stages.
Yeah.
He needs to, like, write a book too much. And then, like, shorten the book.
Yeah, just, like, have your source material laid out, because I think he's just, like, trying to make too many connections too far out, and it makes me a little nervous, but... I do have a last note or two about The Martian that I wanted to just throw out there.
Well, Adrian, what did you think about that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think this movie, based on the reaction to this movie, it makes me sleep easier knowing that how excited other people were about this film. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, for me, I personally, like everybody at this table, I really dug Prometheus. I'll even go as far to say I loved it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was looking forward to it. Mm-hmm. I was like, look, I think I'm looking forward to where they take this story. But I'm happy now that people now can kind of forget his past run of bad movies and be like, oh yeah, let's see what he does next. So now he has that vote of confidence to say, okay, even though I'm pretty sure he wasn't doubting himself or anything like that, but there was pressure, M. Night Shyamalan type pressure on him to turn something out that was really good.
I have 2 points. One is Lindelof's not involved in the writing of the second, right? Not. So that's also encouraging because the plot devices of having the scientists forget about science for a few moments might not happen in this one. Those are my biggest problems with the first one. Secondly is I honestly think that people downplay how much his brother's death affected him creatively. And I feel like that's why so many of his films either took a dark tone or he may have lost some of the themes of his films. Yeah. I think just the way his brother passed away and like his brother was a part of his creative team for so many different things. Like I feel like that affected especially the immediate reaction of and the immediate involvement of Prometheus.
He's also 77. I mean, he's kind of old guy.
He's an older dude. Yeah. So it's like, but I mean, someone like George Miller is older and he was very in touch with what audiences want. So I don't know. I'm encouraged by this film. I think it helps. It helps my vote of confidence toward it.
Cool. Awesome.
Was that all you wanted to say on that?
My quick thing is, I feel like, my last note on The Martian,
and
then I will stop talking as much as I have been for this review, but it's more realistic and down-to-earth than Interstellar. Yeah. It's a stronger and more subtle love letter to NASA than Tomorrowland, which seems to be heavy-handed. It's also more compelling one astronaut surviving in space than Gravity. I think that it kind of hits all three of those notes and improves upon those movies, which are already... except for Tomorrowland. Good movies.
And it's better and not as racially stereotyping as Exodus, Gods and Kings.
True, it's a very racially diverse...
There's a lot less Moses in this movie.
But no, you're right, though, to have, a Latin pilot and to have all this... Yeah, the cast was wonderful, so... Yeah.
I dug it. If
even
you guys haven't seen
in there, I mean,
you know how I feel about redheads. You know how I feel about redheads. Hot damn. But yes, that is The Martian. If you haven't seen it, go see it now.
Go see it.
All right, what do we got next? We are going to be talking about Fantastic Four.
Oh, there it is.
We're going to be talking. I
can't even fight it anymore.
We're going to be talking Sicario, and this I'm going to let. We're going to be talking Sicario, and I saw this before you guys at screening.
You did.
And I was excited as hell for you guys to see this. So I want to hand the reins over to you, my friends, and go to town.
All right, I'm going to use another Grantland quote because they've been doing some really good reviews lately. This one's from Chris Ryan. He quotes, "As the war on drugs has become the drug war, and as the prism through which we view the conflict has become increasingly militarized, so has the cinema surrounding it. And now, this war has its apocalypse now." Now, that's a loaded quote to start things off, but Sicario is a film starring Emily Blunt, Benicio del Toro. It's got a little love from Josh Brolin, a couple other minor characters here and there. Those are the three major players in this piece. Is a film, I would say, that is about... I don't think it's about the war on drugs specifically. I think it's about the border's reaction to what it's doing to us morally and economically, and how it's affecting cultures on both sides of the fence.
And how really complicated it is.
How incredibly complicated it is. And my first topic that I just want to throw out there is there's good, there's bad, there's what's right, and then there's Alejandro. Yeah. So that's kind of the theme of this movie, is that there's just, you don't really know if you should be taking one side over the other. My question to you guys is what is this movie saying? Like, are we collectively supposed to be at this point of relative futility in the war on drugs? Like, that's how I feel. It's like at the end of the movie, you're like, is this the kind of thing that we're just supposed to accept it and just allow like a status quo kind of thing? And that's kind of what they're sort of saying at the onset of the movie. So I just want to ask you, like, how are we supposed to interpret this film? Like, are we supposed to have any kind of optimism toward what's going on in the world? Because it's a very documentary feel to this film. I don't know.
I don't think it provides any, like, hope. It's like, what I liked about it is that it takes, like, the DEA and the drug enforcement, like, agencies that we have, and, like, sheds, like, huge bright light on them in a realistic light of how they're twisting the rules of the game. And like,
not how they have to twist the rules.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I fell out of favor with the movie. Like, Adrian was, like, a huge proponent of it, and I was really excited to go see it, and I honestly, like, got a little, like, lost in the movie, and I'll admit that. Like, it's a very smart, intellectual movie. Yeah, and I don't understand what Alejandro, like, he was basically using one of the agencies to get revenge. Yeah,
so that's what's interesting about the movie, and I think if we see it again, because I know Adrian's seen it twice, so he definitely has a unique perspective on it, and we'll get to you as well. Yeah. But I think to your point, what works in this film is that because you're Emily Blunt's view, like, you're in her lens, like, you only see what she sees. So you almost don't know who he is until it's almost too late. You're too far down the rabbit hole. But to go back, like, not to give anything away in the film, because there's some nice twists in this film I don't think we should be giving away. Okay. But I think Benicio del Toro's character, Alejandro, plays for multiple teams. Exactly. And it's up to you to decide if it's the U.S. asking him for his help, or if he's just kind of going where he's needed, or if it's both. And he's using the like it's mutually beneficial to both parties that the U.S. uses him, he uses them. So but you're not really aware of what's going on until it's far too late, and that's kind of Emily Blunt's character's problem. She gets far too into it to realize that.
I felt like I was Emily Blunt.
Yeah, which is that means the film's doing it. So, Adrian, jump in. What do you think?
I'm glad you brought up the Grantland quote, because that brings up an interesting point, and I want to use it to answer the question. And it's basically, I agree with Jonathan. It doesn't necessarily like hint at that we're in an optimistic path. Mm-hmm. I don't even necessarily think it's trying to hit at, like, if we're going toward a bad path or a good path. It's just, it outlines the path that we're going on. Agreed. And it is very similar to Apocalypse Now from that aspect of, it captures not necessarily, like, the specific situation that maybe, like, traffic did, but it captures the theme of what's happening with the situation as a result. Mm-hmm. As you saw in the movie, that the U.S. is, instead of trying to just eliminate the drug problem, it's like, look, we have to regain control of the drug problem. So, like, look, if we can manipulate it to where it's just a couple, maybe even just one country or cartel that we can maybe regulate, then great. But when it's all this like clusterfuck of just the Wild West when it comes to this stuff, that's when you have to turn into these guys who are literally these gunslingers.
Yeah.
You hire these hitmen, and you're just like, do what you do best.
Catch a small fish to get a big fish.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's exactly right. And I personally, I really liked it because it was pretty, in my opinion, I think it was very, it took a straightforward story that allowed just the story itself to create the meat of what was going on, rather than trying to suggest little hints of like certain themes.
Yeah, they didn't go heavy in a broader sense as if traffic would, you know.
But I agree. I think that we're at a point now where not just the United States and Mexico, but like just the drug problem as it is right now.
Just as a North and South American problem.
You know, kind of very much like, you know, the way the U.S. was with Vietnam.
Yeah.
You know, it's like at a certain point you have to take certain measures to kind of defeat either your enemy or the person you're up against.
Or just build a wall.
You're very Trumpian response.
Let's make Sicario great again. All right.
Yeah, no, I guess a follow-up to that to me is at the end of the movie...
But they had tunnels, see?
They see, look at that. Boom. And planes, in general.
Don't forget about planes!
I guess for me, like, at the end, do you feel more in line with Emily Blunt's character in that she still feels as if it's wrong, but she still signs off on things, figuratively and literally? Or do you feel more like Josh Brolin's character, where you're just, I'm gonna go with the flow? Like, personally, like, how did you feel at the end of the movie? You're like, did you feel like you're Emily Blunt's character, where you're jaded, but you still felt as if there's something that could be done, we're just not doing it the right way? Or were you Josh Brolin, where it's just like, put your bootstraps up and do whatever's in the gray area? You
Josh
know?
Brolin.
You were in Josh Brolin's camp?
I am in the Brolin camp, but I want to say that as a human being, you want to
be in Emily Blunt's camp.
Or you want to be Emily Blunt.
But the movie pissed me off because she was like kept in the dark and allowed herself to be in the dark for so long of that movie.
But there's an optimism in that. She thinks she can do something, so she's like...
You can't do something when you have no idea where your trajectory is heading. Right,
but at the same time, like, this is the problem we had earlier when we both talked about this after we saw it, was like, there's a certain amount of respect and reference you take from your higher ups. If you're in a structure like that where your supervisors and your bosses tell you,
Josh Brolin, who
they weren't though. It was more the guy from Titanic. I forget his name, but he was the one that was like essentially encouraging her, like, this is something you should be doing. Essentially,
and he also says, like, look, whatever you're doing. Like I forget exactly what he said, but he's like, you're not doing something wrong.
Right. He says if you think you're crossing that line, you're not. And he's like,
the line has been
moved. And that was really interesting to me. Yeah. And another note is the fact that Josh Brolin was saying, and this to your point, was when he says, like, unless we can get 20% of the population to stop snorting and smoking this stuff, we have to do whatever it takes to control the situation. So it's just so, the line is so gray. It's ridiculous to me.
Elect Bernie.
Marijuana
legal.
But
takes away 10% of it.
It is a very timely, important, film.
It's one of those, and that's like, I completely agree with everything that we're all saying, because it's supposed to be that kind of where it's like you want to be Emily Blunt for the fact that you're a good human being would be like, look, there has to be another way where we could stay within the rules that we created to protect ourselves. Yep. But at the same time, it's like, look, when the other guy doesn't play by the rules, you can't assume that they're going to grow conscious and start playing by the rules.
It's modern warfare.
Free writing problem.
Yeah. It's intense.
And it pisses me off that like all these articles were written about like, oh, the movie's like supporting Donald Trump and like all these politicians.
Not at all.
But I think it's
not though.
It's people who didn't see the film. Honestly, if it comes down to it, didn't see the film, and actually. The mayor of Juarez is boycotting the movie.
Oh God! That guy. This is the thing. I understand why he's doing that,
of
but
course.
like,
I mean, you have to naturally do it.
I have family members that dated people that go to Juarez.
Really?
That shit is not an exaggeration.
It really is a terrible place to be. I'm sure in certain pockets where we saw the underbelly of the city.
The stories that you hear, the stories that I have heard from people that have actually experienced.
There's a ring of truth.
Do we know if they actually filmed there?
Oh, I do know. I read an article. They did scout, but as they were scouting, they determined it was too unsafe to shoot there. So they shot nearby in another town. Yeah. And then they did it. The exteriors, the aerial shots are Juarez, but it's not. They didn't shoot there. They couldn't. It was too unsafe. I want to do a quick aside to how effective the performances were really quickly.
Yeah, that's fine.
I know we talked about Emily Blunt and her her performance. She's a very vulnerable character, but needed to be. But at the same time, took a lot of physical and emotional pain.
Hell
like,
yeah,
she was physically beaten up several times in this movie.
It was
shot in the stomach. Like of course she was wearing a bulletproof vest, but like there are moments in this movie that you're just like, God, like
she was like the
just
Tom
get
Cruise
out. Like
Emily
you don't
Blunt.
have to be here anymore. But she kept taking more and more pain.
Mm-hmm.
She was like the what?
The Tom Cruise when Emily Blunt was beating him up.
Yeah, she's Tom Cruise and Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah, she's very much the opposite of Edge of Tomorrow's character.
Yeah, very
but
much so.
Just as badass in a certain way. But she's an important character in this film. But I feel like Benicio del Toro steals the movie.
Personally, and I know like when in our last episode toward the end, I said like I think Del Toro was so good that he was this guy that you just. Like at the beginning of the movie, you didn't know. You thought he was a legitimate like the district attorney or something like that.
He
like,
was a prosecutor. He was a lawyer. Yeah,
he was a prosecutor. And you're like, oh, he's probably just gonna interrogate the hell out of him. But then all of a sudden you're like, no, this guy kills people.
Walks in with a giant
why is he bringing that water?
Oh my gosh! Like I thought he was terrific. The second time I saw it, the more I liked Josh Brolin's acting.
I was gonna say that too. He kind of had like this like. The dude vibe.
He did.
Of like a Jeff Bridges. Like he just was like
he was almost aloof to the point of like
almost so over it, but still wants really to like you said like lace up the boots and just like get this shit done.
Yeah,
no, for sure.
I listened to this one podcast that interpreted his performance in a very interesting way. They said that he was like that because all the other characters were like so tense, and I felt that this person who was talking was like they felt that if he was as tense as they were. This movie wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked, and I don't think the characters would have been on edge as they would have been if he's all chilling. Because the fact that they see him trying, like, dude, you should take this more seriously.
It's true.
Then all of a sudden their senses
they're overcompensating for him because they're like, no, what, no, stop, get up. Like it's a good point. It juxtaposes the fact that everyone else is so high pitched.
It also doesn't work with like the Emily Blunt thing because like Emily Blunt's kept in the dark and he's almost one to keep her in the dark because he's like, I don't know, like
yeah, and it almost
because if everyone was like military style, she'd be like, you clearly know what's going on. Tell me what's going on.
Right, and as an audience member, you're like, well, I mean, trust him. He's so chill about it. Like it's fine. And then you're like, oh no, he's using her.
And I feel like, and now that we talk about it more, I kind of think that the reason he's like that is because. You know, like when the guy from Titanic, the guy where he's like, the line's been moved.
Bad I don't know his name.
Yeah, like the line has been moved. Technically, Josh Brolin's the one that's fucking with the line. He's just like, we can literally do whatever we want now.
Yeah. And you get the feeling that there's somewhere higher up that's just like, go ahead. We won't say no. Yeah. But
Emily Blunt is the line if you think about it. The reason they brought her on the team is because
the line moves as she's there. So
exactly.
they're like, we're in the tunnel and you're in the tunnel. So yeah, it's
dropping the mic. That was beautiful, man. High five. Yeah, we've high fived 3 times.
We don't need to go any further with the characters.
Yes.
I think we're going to jump into Roger Deakins' cinematography.
Let's do it. Cinematographer.
So just quick background. This is the man who brought us Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, True Grit, Doubt, Skyfall, and he still has not won an Oscar. And this is hopefully his, I think, 12th or 13th nomination if he gets it. So hopefully this is 12th or 13th is the charm. So my question to you is, like, is there a scene or a moment in the movie that really stands out to you? Not to put you on the spot, if not, I've got a few.
Opening scene to the movie. Like
the opening sequence? Like
the opening sequence and then, like, that last shot before it, like, kicks into the actual movie.
Yeah.
How it goes back on those body bags again.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, my favorite thing, and the thing that said the most to me, was the scene where they're about to invade the tunnels.
Yeah.
When in the dark, when they're all walking down this mountain, and they're all kind of like in a silhouette,
and
they're all walking, and the shot waited.
It lingers.
It waited until all of them were out of frame, and to me, like that said the most because it means like all of them are going in, and there's no coming back.
It's definitely Apocalypse Now.
Yeah,
it's like we're in the last part of the river. Like,
yeah, we have to like everybody's all in on this, and there's no going back.
Absolutely.
There's no one. Everybody's in now. You're all in, and I thought that was amazing. And I just want to know that the reason we're putting a special segment aside for this guy is because how amazing he did in this movie.
I did a little research on him because I didn't realize how many of the films I love the styles of he did. He actually has a big background in documentaries, which is why I think this is one of his best films.
Yeah.
Because this film, and he talked about a couple of photographers he used as reference, but he shot the film as if, and he said specifically, other than the aerial shots where they're obviously on a plane, you never really get a serious sense unless it's like a police helicopter, that there's anything above the town. It's usually very, like, eye-level shots. Everything is within the perspective of the characters.
Yeah.
Even when they went on the rooftop and, like, looked over Juarez.
Yeah, even those shots. Like, you're
like
only
it was above, but you're still, like, looking for
it wasn't
the sky.
That's a very interesting point. I didn't notice that till now.
And you're getting very island. You're only getting Emily Blunt's perspective, or when it switches in the third act, you're only really getting his perspective. Like, there's not a lot of devices that really push you in any direction. It's really just, like, what's in the frame this is what happens. And he's said that in interviews. It was very intentional. And they shot in digital, which was pretty cool, so that they could shoot a lot of low-level stuff. They said that they didn't expect all the beautiful sunsets to happen, even though they should have, because it was like the rainy season of wherever they were. But that also played into the landscape of things. Like, I felt like the film visually, like, changed color palettes as it went on. Yeah. And the sunsets really helped that. And they could shoot a lot later into the night because of the digital. Yeah. Those are just little things that I really liked about the film. Yeah. But the one thing one of my favorite shots of the movie was when there's an aerial shot. Yeah. It looks like the nose of the plane. And you don't really see anything except where the plane's headed. And the landscape plays such a big part in this movie where it's just wild. Almost like you said with the Wild Wild West. Like, there's nothing they can control out here. It's just chaos. And there's just a little digitally inserted airplane shadow just floating underneath. And I listened to a podcast that made a very good point that said that that's like a representation of the influence that they have in this vast landscape of just chaos. Like, this team of people can only make this much of a difference. And you just look and it just seems so futile. And I don't know, it was a really good shot, and it was so intentional, but it worked really well for the film.
I kind of wanted to go into a little bit more about how his style and his background in documentaries.
Yeah, for sure.
Was I think that's very interesting because, you know, I like knowing some people that worked in documentaries as far as shooting that stuff. Mm-hmm. I think being able to have experience in that kind of gives you like a second nature of how to kind of understand a circumstance and situation, how the action evolves from that, and how it develops from that, and saying, okay, so if this person's moving at this direction and we're expecting a shootout to happen, we should probably move around here because, you know, it's gonna not only just because it's gonna look better, but because it's gonna capture the story and
in
what's
a clear way.
Exactly.
Yeah, nothing gets in the way in this movie.
There was really no wasted shots here. No. That's the thing. Like, you always hear that cliche, it's like, oh, this guy doesn't waste a frame. This guy didn't waste a reel. And
he said that he says that in a lot of interviews that I read, is that he's like, I don't do something to make it beautiful for the sake of it being beautiful. If it doesn't work, I won't do it, which is why I think I love the shot you mentioned, because it is gorgeous, but it really serves a purpose, and that's why it's still in the movie. Yeah. And Jonathan, to your point, the first scene, like, the fact that this drama and this tension and, like, the fact that they revealed the body should have been enough for you. And then once they have this conversation outside, you're like, you feel like a moment of time has passed and they're going to move on to the next thing. But then they bring you back in the house, and you're just like, I don't want to go back in. Like, I know what's in there. And they just tell you how many bodies are in there, and just it heightens how negative the tone of the film is going to be. And it was pitch perfect. And there were like 3 or 4 sequences like that were so good. Let's see.
I see Adrian has a question written down here.
I do.
A very obscure question, but maybe
worthwhile.
I already forgot about it.
He's like, I don't even know what I wrote.
There were repeated shots of dust particles drifting.
That was me. I wrote that down.
I counted at least 3 times.
It did.
What does that mean?
It did happen. I noticed it in the first scene.
I'll take credit for that question.
And I honestly, I wrote it down because I didn't have an answer, because I don't know why they did it.
Yeah.
I have an answer.
Yeah.
So, I see it as these Mexican cartels kicking up problems and like all this like trouble and frustration, but these troubles and frustrations are always like floating and changing and
you almost can't see them unless That's good, actually. That's a good point. That's a lot of invisible problems that people choose to ignore. That's it, kind of in line with when they said after the shootout sequence on the border, when they were like, this is going to make the front page news of every national paper. He's like, this won't even make it to the El Paso pages. And I'm like, that is so like heavy that like all of these things happen, and if you're not on the U.S. border, it goes unnoticed, and that's really sad. Like, that's a really good point. I've never really made that connection.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. That was awesome.
That's solid. That's really good.
Thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome. Thank you for writing.
It's a beautifully written question.
I will say nothing to that one. Yeah. And I just one note is the music by Johan Johansson, who's like an up and coming guy who's so good.
Yeah. I need to see it again.
That's awesome.
There are moments in the beginning of the movie, just like there was sort of a tempo set, and then it just kind of ratcheted up. Every sequence just got a little more intense. And as the movie went on, it would dip into lower tones, and you just felt like you were dropping into the belly of the beast. It was awesome.
It was awesome, and I know what they were referencing.
Really?
I know what they were referencing.
What were they referencing?
They were totally referencing the first 2 Terminator movies.
Really?
If you notice, where it's like boom.
A lot of those, a lot of the glissando things.
And it was, when I was hearing, I was like, man, this is awesome. And I'm like, Terminator did the exact same thing.
Or maybe Lost.
True, but it's like slower. There is a score that happened the last few years that sounded like this, and I can't quite pinpoint it. But it's worked really well in recent movies.
And I love how subtle, slow, like you said, it wasn't overbearing. It was a part of the scene. It wasn't like, here, we have to make you feel this so you can understand what's going on. It's like, no. It was very subtle. It tied in very much like The Dark Knight, where, like, the Joker is first introduced. Where it's just like...
It's just there enough for you to heighten what you already feel.
Because it's not like one of those, like... I don't want to rip Hans Zimmer because I don't really know that much about him, but, like, when I watched Man of Steel, that was too much. It was too much. It was just like Superman.
Which is why Dark Knight worked, is because James Newton Howard would mellow it out a little bit, so it was two different composers in that score. But yeah, if you leave him to his devices, he gets a little bombastic.
But everything about this movie, that's why, like, for me, it's like one of my as of right now, it stands as my favorite movie of the year, right next to probably Inside Out, and that's why it was just really, really good. It was a straightforward story done perfectly, perfectly.
I think I could bet money that it's not going to be nominated for Best Picture.
I disagree. I think it will.
I don't. My gut tells me it won't be nominated for Best Picture because of the heavy subject matter. Because like I haven't seen a movie like maybe like Crash that's gotten that much like that got that kind of like serious tone and was able to get in there.
True, and this
but
is
I hope I'm wrong.
Better film.
I hope I'm wrong because this director's on a hot streak right now. He just came off freaking Prisoners.
True.
He's doing this, and then he's gonna be doing Blade Runner. I'm like, and he's working with Roger Deakins again.
Is.
He's never done sci-fi.
So
he's never done sci-fi.
I'm really excited about that.
So I'm
He's
excited.
gonna ground that movie.
Everybody's on the upswing from this movie.
As a little cap to like the Roger Deakins thing, I honestly think that he could win like best cinematography just because of the combination of like the editor and the like sound design, like all three just
seamless.
Hit perfectly.
Yeah. You almost don't notice him until you realize how beautiful it was at the end of the movie, and that's
exactly.
that's what's so important as an editor and a cinematographer. It's like don't get in the way,
No.
but then at the end leave an imprint. Like it's really hard.
It's one of the few movies that I've seen. Like a lot of people, like you watch Oh Brother Where Art Thou, where everything you're just like that was a great freaking movie.
Yeah.
But then this was one of the few movies that I've been to where people who the casual moviegoer was like, man, that was a beautiful looking movie.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you don't hear that very often. So when you have a casual moviegoer saying that, you know what? Maybe
people
this
are
is
noticing.
the year.
People who don't notice usually notice. And for me, the one thing I will say is that the choice not to do handheld on like most of the sequences
Was awesome.
Is ballsy to do a movie this realistic and then be like, we're going to keep the camera here and this stuff, all of this is going to happen.
It was
we're
refreshing.
not going to give
like,
it away.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, we're in the dirt now. It's
Yeah,
like, no. I love that. Like I freaking
The
love
Steadicam
that.
was only in the tunnel. I think there's one really big Steadicam sequence.
The camera was never moving. Like it was not moving in the from a handheld.
No, yeah.
Or like from
the infrared
no
sequence too was
tracking
insane.
shots or anything like that.
Yeah, not a lot of Tom Hooper craziness. You know, the unnecessary 14-minute sequences.
Yes.
But that just for me technically, creatively. As a written film, as a directorial, almost not debut, but in terms of like Oscar buzz, this is going to be his big.
It's a great kickoff to the Oscar season.
I love this film, and it's going to be in my top 5 of the year for sure. So.
I loved it, man. I look forward to seeing it again. I've seen it twice already for free.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
You didn't see
I
it
want to see it
screeners.
again. I look forward to paying for this movie.
Look at that, a third time no less.
I love this. This is the only movie I've seen this year, maybe aside from like Mad Max, that I've wanted to see again and again and again and again.
I would see this again. I think the only other film I saw twice this year is Jurassic World, so it's in good company.
Yeah.
So if there's not anything else, I think we'll tie things together and say that next week we're probably gonna have a Steve Jobs review.
Yes,
to bring
and
up.
maybe we'll have a Halloween movie special,
Yeah.
like to kind of like
That would
tip
be
the
awesome.
cap of saying, hey, it's Halloween season. Let's talk some
Absolutely.
Halloween movies, but. For now, I
sounds like a
think
good
that's
tease.
pretty much it.
Absolutely, looking forward to that. For Exit Only Theater, I'm JP Leigh.
I'm Adrian Alderete.
And Jonathan Fisher.
And we'll see you when the credits roll.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
There were 2 people
Goodbye.
making noises.